السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يوم يأتي لا تكلم نفس إلا بإذنه فمنهم شقي وسعيد فأما الذين شقوا ففي النار لهم فيها زفير وشهيق خالدين فيها ما دامت السماوات والأرض إلا ما شاء ربك إن ربك فعال لما يريد وأما الذين سعدوا ففي الجنة خالدين فيها ما دامت السماوات والأرض إلا ما شاء ربك عطاء غير مجذوذ.
Thanks very much for coming to the fifth installment of the Oxford University Islamic Society's Experience Islam Week 2016. I'll just give you a quick brief of the remaining events. So tomorrow we have our cultural fair, which we will co-host with a number of other societies from 11 to 3 p.m. At the town hall, so please do drop in, and there will be some delicious food. On Sunday we're taking a break, but we'll try to balance that out by doing 2 events on Monday, inshallah. The first will be with Jonathan Brown, the renowned scholar of Hadith, who will be speaking about his latest book, Misquoting Muhammad. That will be 1 p.m. at St. John's. And in the evening we have our union debate with our very own Professor Tariq Ramadan and Mariam Namazi, who is the spokesperson for the Council of Ex-Muslims, and they'll be debating a number of issues relating to Islam in Europe. If you want any more details, please see our Facebook page, or you can email us and get onto our mailing list. Tonight we're very honoured to welcome His Royal Highness Prince Ghazi bin Muhammad of Jordan. Prince Ghazi is Chief Advisor for Religious and Cultural Affairs to his cousin, His Majesty King Abdullah II of Jordan. He is also a Professor of Islamic Philosophy at the University of Jordan, having obtained his BA in Comparative Literature at Princeton University, having done his first doctorate on the literary archetype of love at Trinity College, Cambridge, and his second doctorate at Al-Azhar University on love in the Holy Quran, which was published as a book and is now on to its 10th edition, and that's received wide acclaim in Islamic scholarship. And he's also an editor of the book War and Peace in Islam, The Uses and Abuses of Jihad, which was published in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. Prince Ghazi is also known for his many religious initiatives. Just to give a few examples, in 1997 he founded the National Park of the site of the baptism of Jesus Christ. In 2001 he established the Great Tafsir Project, the largest online project for exegesis in the Holy Quran, of the Holy Quran. He was the author of the 3 articles of the Amman Message. In 2007, the author of the historic Common Word Between Us and You initiative, an open letter from Muslim leaders to Christian leaders. He has been generous enough to come visit us today to answer the question, what is happiness? So without going on anymore, I will hand over to Prince Ghazi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله. Thank you very much for this kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me to give a talk on what is happiness. I see there are more people here than I had anticipated, but this confirms a suspicion I've long had that Oxford is a really miserable place. So that people would want to come and listen to a talk on what is happiness. What other reason is there for coming to listen to a talk on what is happiness than the fact that we are miserable? Well, so what I'm going to do is, he's asked me to keep a short talk. So what I'll do is I'll talk about for 20 minutes on defining happiness, first of all in general terms, philosophical terms, and then from the Quran, and then another 10 minutes on how to achieve happiness in our world today. So I'll start, if you will, by reading a passage from the Georges. Most people, I think, as any philosophy students here, you'll be familiar with Plato's dialogue on happiness, the Georges. So in the Georges, the character of Socrates says, and I'm collating from different passages, he says, I say, the admirable and good person, man or woman, is happy. But the one who is unjust and wicked is miserable. Happiness, evidently, isn't a matter of getting rid of evil. It's rather a matter of not contracting it to begin with. The happiest man, then, is the one who doesn't have evil in his soul. And second, I suppose, is the one who gets rid of it. The good man does well and admirably whatever he does. And that, the man who does well, is blessed and happy, while the corrupt man, the one who does badly, is miserable. A person who wants to be happy must evidently pursue and practice self-control. Each one of us must flee from the lack of discipline as quickly as his feet will carry him. So that's Plato, so I'm going to come back to that at the end. But I just want to say that if you look at the other ones, the other definitions that are current, so Aristotle in the Nicomachean Ethics says only that happiness is living well, faring well. The word for happiness, as you probably know, is eudaimonia. It's not 100% accurate translation, but that's the general word for happiness. In Greek, we use the word happiness in English. In Arabic, as we see, we use the word sa'ada. So this is something different from the standard understanding of happiness. If you look up in the Oxford English Dictionary, they give you the definition of happiness as a feeling of pleasure or contentment. And what I would contend from the Quran is that happiness is precisely not those things. So what's wrong with this? We'll start with a syllogism, and I will then go on to defining terms. What's wrong with this syllogism? Either you're miserable or you're happy. If you're miserable, you're miserable. And if you're happy, you all know that you're going to die, and that alone should suffice to make you miserable, and therefore you must be miserable. So what's wrong with that syllogism? This is a serious point. Anybody?
There must be a life after. So this pin your hopes on something to come, perhaps. Happiness.
Yes, I meant strictly from, that's right, but strictly from the logical, as a logical syllogism. This is, after all, supposed to be Oxford. Yes, go on.
Definition of life can be very different, and if you have a son, your genes will continue, so you will not die, you will live in generation to come.
Yes, precisely. Well, the problem is, of course, I haven't defined my terms. And much of philosophy, as you know, is about defining the terms. There's three things when you talk about happiness. There's what we understand, we generally understand as happiness. Everybody knows what happiness means. We have a vague idea what happiness means. And then there's knowing it well enough to be able to define it. In the Phaedrus, in Plato's Phaedrus, Plato says you want to know something, you have to define it. And you have to be able to reduce it to the simplest possible element, in other words, to the simplest quality. In the Cratylus, he says, you have to know it, you have to know something backwards and forwards. So defining something is very important second stage in being able to live it. And of course the third stage is living it, understanding it, possessing it, knowing it directly as well. So of course what we must do is we've got to define our terms. Einstein says, he says if you can't say something simply, you don't understand it well enough. So, you know, in the religious and in the Islamic world, and I think here at Oxford, also in Cambridge and in the Western world, much of sort of medieval conversations were about defining terms. And syllogisms depend upon defining terms. So we really have to define the term happiness. What I'm going to do is I'm going to define it from the Quran, but before that I will go through some near synonyms so that you understand what it's not. So let's go through some near synonyms for happiness in the Quran. We start with pleasure. The Oxford English Dictionary uses the word pleasure as a reference for happiness. Now, pleasure in the Quran, istimta' or mut'a, usually refers to something directly associated with the body. يتمتعون يأكلون ويتمتعون. And so it's something that, it's a feeling of enjoyment that stems from the body. So obviously that's not happiness. The second term that is often mistaken for happiness is rida. Now rida we translate as contentment. And rida depends in the Quran always on an object. And this object can be something worldly, or it can be something heavenly. وَرَضُوا بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They are content with this low life. And then in another verse, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. They are content with God and God is content with them. So contentment always depends on an object. Contentment depends then on having something. So physical pleasure, mut'a, is enjoying something. Contentment is having something. The third term that is very close to happiness in the Quran, and is often mistaken for, is farah. Now, farah in Arabic, in the Quran, and what I'm doing is I'm doing what they call tafsir with-tafsir, using the Quran's own uses of terms to explain what the terms mean. And in fact, with these terms in particular, the Quran is very clear about what they mean through their usage. Now, farah can be used in two ways. It can be used, يَفْرَحُونَ بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They are happy, they are, joyful with the lower world. And it can be used with spiritual things, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran also, قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Let them be content with God's bounty and His mercy. So we have farah used in two ways. Now farah is different from the other two in a different way, because farah depends on your getting something. So you're either getting and you're content, you're happy with something because you've got it. Either if you have it, if it's a worldly thing and you have a worldly joy, then that's the sort of lower farah. And then there's an upper farah, which is to have a joy because you got something from God, from God's mercy. So it is different from the others. Then there's two other terms which are not emotions like those, sort of emotions, but we really need to understand those before knowing what happiness is. And those are love, hub, and rahmah, mercy. Now, in the Quran, I've derived all of these in my book in sort of at length, but in the Quran, rahmah is used with the giving of something. If you have mercy on something, you give something to it. God gives us something. And it is something particular. And in fact, Allah's rahmah encompasses all things. وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. So it's for particular things. So it's a gift. And it differs from love, because whereas mercy is a gift of something, love is a gift of self. It's an entire gift. God's love, for example, and God's love differs from human love in a certain way, because for human love we give ourselves, but for God's love, He gives us, and then He gives us towards Him, and He gives us Him, as it were. In Surah Taha, There's just a remarkable verse where Surah Taha is 20th Surah Al-Quran, where Moses is challenged. Pharaoh challenges Moses. And Pharaoh says to Moses, فَمَنْ رَبُّكُمْ يَا مُوسَى? Who is your Lord? In another surah, Surah Shah, he says, مَا رَبُّكُمْ? What is your Lord? But in this surah, he says, who is your Lord? What is, in other words, what is your Lord's essential nature? What is his being? He's asking about God's own being, if we can use the word being. And Sayyidina Musa says, الَّذِي أَعْطَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلْقَهُ ثُمَّ هَدَى. God is He who has given everything its khalq, its creation, its being, ثُمَّ هَدَى. Then He guides that thing, and then He gives that thing guidance. So it's a double gift. God's love is a double gift. It's, first of all, us, our body, our soul, our life, all the attributes we have. And then giving Him the path towards Him, ultimately giving us Him. So it's a double gift. But we are so poor, you see, we're so poor that He has to give us ourselves first, and then gives us Himself. When we give, we just give ourselves. So love, and I derived the definition of love from two verses in the Quran, one describing the beginning of love, and one describing the end of love. Now, if you put the beginning and the end of something together, you get the whole thing, is if the speaker is omniscient, which is the Muslim assumption from the Quran. So, the beginning of love is وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ حُسْنُهُ. Even if it's an ijab in husn, it's a feeling of being pleased by or being wondering at beauty. And then the end of love is discovered فَلَا تَمِيلُ كُلِّ الْمَيْلِ. Don't incline a complete inclination. So putting the two together, we get that the definition of love, human love, is al-mail, inclination, إلى الحسن بعد الإعجاب. The inclination towards beauty after being pleased by it, after feeling wonderful. Now, beauty isn't just physical beauty, because there's a hierarchy of beauty, and the lowest beauty, of course, is physical beauty, but then there's the beauty of soul, and then, of course, the ultimate husn is the beauty of the attributes of God. Asma'ullah al-husna. Husna means beautiful. And we know that the muhsinin, the virtuous, actually literally means those with beautiful souls. So it's an inclination towards, so love is an inclination towards beauty, but bear in mind there's a hierarchy of beauty going from the outer towards the inner, and then ultimately towards God. So love is an inclination towards beauty, and it is a gift of self. You give your whole self. Mercy is a gift of something. Joy is getting. Pleasure is physical. And contentment is having. Now this is completely different from sa'ada, which is the word for love. And the word sa'ada is used only twice in the Quran, just two surahs apart, in the same topic, in the end of Surah Hud. And it refers to the blessed in paradise. وَمِنْهُمْ شَقِيٌّ وَسَعِيدٌ فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ سُعِدُوا. For those who are made happy. It's not used anywhere in the Quran for living, for people who are alive as we commonly know it. So the question, I'll come back to that question in a second, whether we can be happy in this life or not. I'll come back to that question in a second. But just to explain what it is, happiness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the definition of happiness after the verse where He describes the blessed in paradise. A gift unfailing, giving without interruption. And that's what I contend is the definition of happiness. You're happy through giving without interruption. What is happiness? Happiness is giving constantly. Constantly giving without interruption. And it is different from love because love can make us miserable. Anybody who loves knows that we can be miserable. And there are states of qabd and bast, of contraction and expansion in love. And in different kinds of love, we suffer from unrequited love. We can be quite miserable. And even in requited love, there are states. But there is none of that in paradise. So we don't assume that there is any, as it were, unhappiness and happiness. But happiness is a pure thing, and it occurs in paradise. So why I've been thinking about this for a while, why is it not mentioned in this way? Why is happiness never mentioned this way? And I think the reason is quite simple. If the definition of happiness is uninterrupted giving, our giving in this world is always interrupted. I mean, we sleep, we do other things, we stop giving. Even if we're constantly giving ourselves to God, there are moments where the human soul is normal, where we stop giving. So the question is, can we be truly happy in this world? And I would answer that we can be happy to the extent that we give ourselves. The more we give, the happier we are. Now this is something completely different from the common idea of happiness. We think of happiness, if I get this, I'll be happy. If I get this, I'll be happy. If I get this. No, it's not what the Quran is saying. It's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran. The Quran is saying, you're only happy because to the extent that you're constantly giving yourself. Now, who's happiest that we know in our lives? And I'll tell you who's the happiest people I know are people who are giving themselves all the time. Namely, mothers who stay up all night with their children, who are constantly working for the benefit. They are happy. People who have jobs, we talk about job satisfaction. The most obvious way we're happy in this world is when we have job satisfaction. Because in our jobs, if we feel that we're doing something productive, that makes us happy. We feel useful. We get job satisfaction. Aid workers, teachers, doctors, nurses. I think you'll find that the happiest people are the most giving people. And that's a huge thing. Just to know that is a huge thing. Because you could go your whole life, the American Constitution says, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you can spend your whole time saving enough money to buy that Porsche that you think will make you happy, and it won't. It may be joyful for a while. But if you know from now that you're only going to be happy if you give yourselves, then you actually will be much happier throughout your life. Because you know that true happiness comes only from giving. And if you give in the right way, this is a happiness that lasts into the next life. It lasts. I think that is the big, as it were, message of happiness in the Quran. Happiness is giving. Now, how does that square up with the definition of happiness from Plato's Georges? Well, it's more specific. Plato's right, the good person is happy, but the good person isn't happy if he's frustrated because he's not able to do anything. He's good to the extent that he's giving himself either to God, it could be to God in prayer, otherwise not ostensibly doing much outward, but giving himself in some way. That is what makes you happy. So that's, as it were, the surprising message of happiness in the Quran. Happiness comes from giving. And it's very good to know that. I think it'd be very good to know that when we're young, so that when you go and apply for a job after Oxford, you will look for a job that will make you happy by allowing you to give yourself, to give your time, to give your energy, to give your strength, to give your intelligence, to give your patience. That's what's going to make you happy. All right. So now, Samir asked me to say, look, don't just give an intellectual talk. Give us a talk that will talk to us in the modern world. So if you will all please take up your iPhones, your smartphones. Please all take out your phones. Just hold up your phone for a second. Okay, now look at your phone and say these words. Hello, Gollum. Hello, Gollum. That's rather appropriate that I was just telling friends that I came about, when I was at Cambridge, I came here and sort of visited a friend. And I spent 2 nights in the guest room. And in the guest room, you know, I'd read Lord of the Rings. And in the guest room, in the signature, they had a signature, and I signed my name. And I flipped back a few pages, and there was a signature of J.R.R. Tolkien. Apparently he was a fellow here, or he's science of law. So I saw his signature there. So what I mean by that is that the modern world has given you all a phone. And you all think, and we all think, that this phone is the ring of power. Because we can do amazing things. We can go all over the place. And we can, as it would be absent from the world around us. And it's constantly adding new powers on our phone. We can do anything with this phone. And we are, as it were, using this phone. But this phone is not a ring of power. It is your own personal Gollum. And what it takes from you is your time. It takes your time. The average, I just read today, I read a study saying that, the previous studies say that in the Muslim world and in the West, the average person overall spends 6 hours a day on the internet, on television, radio, pop music, social media, video games. Today, this morning, somebody sent me a link by, happy coincidence. There was a small sort of thing on the BBC, and I looked it up, and it said that the average person spends 10 hours a day on technology. And we are at 9 hours 53 minutes to be precise. Somebody called Greg Foote on the BBC. You can look it up. And we are giving ourselves to this. And this giving of ourselves isn't real giving, it's a taking. We are taking because we are amused by this. This is our pleasure. We're addicted. The chap on the BBC was saying there's something called a dopamine feedback loop, so that we're literally addicted by our distraction with these things. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Firru ila Allah. Sabiqu ila maghfiratin rabbikum. Wasari'u. Sabiqu wasari'u. Or is it Sari'u wasari'u? One of them is anyway, rush to God, race to God, flee to God. The Prophet ﷺ said, make use of 5 before 5. Make use of your youth before you're old. Make use of your time before you have no time. Make use of your money before you have no money. Make use of your health before you're sick. And make use of your life before you're dead. Now we're all coming to our death. When you're young, you think that life is a space, and you've got many things. It's like virtual reality, you can just pick, and it goes on forever because death isn't real. You never experienced it, probably. Most of the people, you haven't had anybody close to you that's died. So it's not something real. It's not something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Awla laka fa'awla. It's coming closer and closer to you. I made my teenage son, read a book last week called The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Tolstoy. Because I remember reading that book, saying, this character Ivan Ilyich, she doesn't think he's going to die. And suddenly he gets sick, and he's confronted with death, it becomes real. And suddenly he's shocked that death actually happens, not to other people, but to you. So this is what we face as Muslims. That we are giving our lives, we're sort of squandering our lives. 6 hours a day, 10 hours a day to this. And our working lives, by the way, 6 hours a day is 42 hours a week. Our working lives are 40 hours a week. The rest of our lives that we spend with our family, that we spend in prayer, that we spend doing other useful things, positive things. So 6 hours is equivalent to our work plus this. So we're spending 1/4 of our lives fritting it away, and it's not going to make us happy because we're taking from this. This is something that we, as it were, we stimulate ourselves. We titillate ourselves with these technology. And in this, we're working a whole lifetime's worth of work for free for those 63 people who control half the wealth of the world. There's this chap called, I read reading this on the BBC a few days ago. There's this chap called Sundar Pichai, and he is the chief executive of Google. And at the end of last year, he gave himself a $200 million bonus for being the chief executive of Google. So what we're doing is, we are all working for Hollywood, for the tech companies, for Apple, for Facebook, for Twitter, for these things. So if you want to be happy, you cannot be happy frittering 6 hours away of your day on nothing. That's taking 6 hours. You have to claw back at least 5 of those hours and give it away. Give it away either to your community, to knowledge, to prayer, to helping around the house, to your spouse, to quality time with people, to something positive. If you don't have people around you, read, learn, read books. If you're spending 6 or 10 hours a day on technology, you're not doing the prayers you should be doing, I can tell you that. You're not doing the qiyam, you're not doing the sunnah, you're not doing adhkar sabah, things that clearly in the sunnah. So, how are we happy in the modern world? Well, we're happy every day. I mean, some people need the internet to shop, and some people need to work, and some people need to research. But what I say is that we need to have a thing where after 1 hour of distraction, we say internet off, and that's it. All right, we've done 1 hour, and that's it. But strict this 1 hour, and then we regain 1/4 of our lives. We get that back, and we can use that to give, and we can be happy by move towards happiness by doing that. We're not this golem. This has a little precious, and it's your time, it's your life. It's taking your time and your life. It's going to take it away from us. So what I do is, I'm not on social media. I don't go on Facebook. I don't go Twitter. I don't waste my time. You don't need to be on Facebook. I'm not a Luddite, but what does it matter? Who's trending? Who cares? Or why would you be on Facebook where people who you don't know and who you wouldn't have a cup of tea with in daylight can contact you on a daily basis? And you don't need to have an opinion on everything that's in a chat room or it's on Twitter. You don't. And most of this stuff, from the Muslim point of view, is ithm. Because you're gossiping, you're giving an opinion about something you don't know about, you don't need to have an opinion, or you're speaking badly about something. That's it, that's what you're doing. So it's not just waste, it's actually an ithm, in sin. So how are we happy? Well, deal with Golem and get off social media. Wallahu a'lam. Thank you.